Hello, ladies and gentlemen. We are back. We are here. It is season 3 of Uncaged. My name is Mike Larkin, and as always, by my side is the one, the only DC Daniel Crimmins. Daniel, we are back. Season 3 has begun.
And folks, I will just say it's good to be back for season 3. We had an incredible season 2. Actually, we had an incredible season 1 and even better season 2. An amazing season 3 lined up. It's so amazing we don't even know what every episode's going to be yet.
Oh, not at all. I mean, we go by the seat of our pants, but we do know what season 1 is, and Daniel hates me for it because we are talking about...
No. Let's get this right, Michael.
Okay. I'm sorry.
You hate me. This should be against the Geneva Convention. This should be considered torture.
Oh, man, okay. It's like when they watch the DVD The Marine. I am the Rock to your John Cena and friggin' the Hall of Fame. I see what you did there. Okay. So we are going to be covering the 17-year anniversary of ECW December to Dismember, the only ECW branded pay-per-view under the new ECW on Sci-Fi. I mean, Daniel...
A pay-per-view so bad that it caused Paul Heyman to quit like 3 days later.
We're going to talk about that, but what... I remember watching this. And here's my thing. If you recall, like, the lead up to this, like, the only matches that were advertised were the Hardys and M&M in the Extreme Elimination Chamber. Like, they didn't even know what the rest of the card was going to be.
And all that, even look at the venue. Like, in rewatching this the other day, like, the thing that really struck me, well, the first thought was, God, this venue's tiny.
Right? I mean, they did it in Augusta, Georgia at the James Brown Arena.
And I don't feel good. Hi.
I don't feel good at either. Yeah. Not so good. I got you. Hey. So Augusta, Georgia. Out of all the places you want to do your first pay-per-view, Augusta, Georgia, man.
A town that is like not associated with ECW. Like you couldn't. What they should. I mean, I get. You couldn't really do an elimination chamber in the ECW arena. Like that's just not possible.
I mean, but the Hammerstein Ballroom, like something.
Not even there. Like
okay.
You couldn't do something in New York. Like find a small venue. Like you're from Long Island. I'm from the upstate and Western New York area. You couldn't find something.
I mean, there's the Coliseum. There's
the Long Island Coliseum. There's that.
Yeah.
There's venues they could have done. You could have found a small venue in Philly, maybe even Chicago.
Yeah, ECW homegrown, like, and hot popular crowds, like, and wrestling crowds, but no, Augusta, Georgia.
In WCW territory.
That is WCW territory.
That is Dudley Rhodes territory, baby. Let me tell you something. Dudley Rhodes would have ran a show in Augusta, Georgia.
He would have. As him as a booger, oh my God.
And he would have finished the story. Which we did.
We did. We finished that story. Go back to our last 2-part finale of season 2, Cody Rhodes' beginning and end in WWE and the Indies and whatnot. Go back and listen to it if you haven't already. Go back to listen to all of Uncaged. But what we're talking about here today also, and here's the thing. I remember watching the press conference. Do you remember the press conference of this going into it?
Yeah, I remember it vaguely, which at that time for a WWE show was kind of weird.
Yeah, they had the Big Show in his blue suit with the title, and I think only other people there were like the Hardys and that, like, and the Elimination Chamber people.
I remember back at this time, like, it was announced that Big Show wasn't going to be sticking around much longer.
No, he was done right after this, and I remember, and I want to see if you remember this. So it was supposed to be in Memphis, but WWE wouldn't allow it, and everything that was going on there. It was supposed to be Hulk Hogan and Jerry Lawler in Memphis, and the Big Show wound up replacing him because WWE was like, "No, you're not going to wrestle Hogan at the Memphis show, Jerry. Not happening."
And he wasn't happy about it.
He was not happy about it, but we got Hogan and Big Show, where Hogan actually slammed the Big Show on that card.
And then I remember, if I'm not mistaken, after this, I think it was the ECW following this, Big Show wrestled a singles match against Franklin Lashley.
Yes, and then he lost again, and that was the end of the Big Show.
For a couple years.
Until No Way Out 08, where him and Floyd Mayweather had that infamous showdown, and then we got
and Big Show randomly appeared. He's like, "Oh, hey, he apparently he's back."
Apparently so, and then he got his nose broken by Floyd Mayweather Jr.
Because Floyd fucked up.
Yes, he did. Really hit me, and he did. And he did. For me too as
And
well.
he legit knocked him out at WrestleMania 24.
Oh, those brass knuckle shot, my goodness. But do you remember like this as well? Like we came off of ECW One Night Stand 2006. RVD's the champion. RVD fucks up, then Edge wins the title, right? So you're in Big Show wins the title. He's going into SummerSlam with Sabu. The infamous match with Batista on ECW changed the
And Ric Flair.
He beat the Ric Flair was the best match out of his entire reign. That was the best match out of his entire reign.
I'm just gonna say this real quick. If Vince had ever wanted to really give a big fuck you to ECW,
Yeah.
I mean he did that when he won the title, but the bigger fuck you would have been to have Ric Flair win the ECW world title.
And they can all kiss my ass.
Like that would have been like the most anti-ECW person you could pick.
The 80s, 90s, the 80s, 90s star Ric Flair winning the ECW championship.
A guy who was very much pro-establishment is, holding the anti-establishment title.
It writes itself and it makes sense, but I got to ask you, when they announced this, because it's coming off of them just highlighting ECW matches on the WWE pay-per-views, were you excited going into this like at all?
I thought, hey, at least they're trying.
Right, because I mean, One Night Stand 06 more had Vince's paw prints on it with who was involved with Randy Orton and Kurt Angle and stuff like that.
Let me put it to you this way, with ECW One Night Stand 05,
yes,
that truly felt like a one-off, and honestly, that's what it should have been.
Nope, but then they brought it back again, and then they gave them their own brand, and it sucked.
And when they brought it back, I thought, oh. And honestly, here's the thing: if you legit thought that ECW 2.0 was going to be anything like the original, like it was going to be strictly no, there is no way the original ECW idea would have worked in the WWE wheelhouse.
No, not at all.
But I was expecting maybe like a hybrid. Mix of WWE and ECW, maybe get a little bit of hardcore. When I knew, there was a moment when I knew that, okay, ECW's dead. Mm-hmm. One Night Stand 06, Sabu versus Rey Mysterio for the World Heavyweight title.
Oh, yeah.
The fact that it ended in a disqualification.
After everything, from the DDT through the tables and everything that they put.
No, that was the DQ spot.
That was the DQ spot? Are you sure?
I'm almost positive.
Okay, because I remember the DDT spot, and then they were both out, and then that was the end of the match, right?
Yeah, like they rang the bell, and if anything, it should have been a double count out, not Sabu getting disqualified.
That's the thing, too. And I mean, that was the same show that had Sandman caning Eugene, and I'm like, oh, God. Like stuff like that. And Taz
and
Jerry Lawler,
you had, what was it, the whole Edge Buell McGillicuddy pin?
Yes, with Edge and Mick Foley against Terry Funk and Tommy Dreamer, and Lita and Beulah with, of course, Tommy Dreamer and Terry Funk.
Edge pinning Buell McGillicuddy like he did.
Yeah. That also featured Taz and Jerry Lawler in like 20 seconds.
Because Taz couldn't
wrestle. But they did it anyway.
Nowadays we say send Hook. I say don't send Taz.
Don't send Taz at all, because I remember he was very slow and he just put the Taz mission in after Joey Styles.
And even he admitted.
Like, he shouldn't have done the match. But that's the thing, too. They tried something with this brand. And here's the thing. Isn't it funny that Shane McMahon was the one who's just like, let's just put it on the website. Yeah. Like, let's legit just put it on the website.
Well, Shane initially... Because you got to remember, 06, 07, YouTube was, really becoming a thing.
Yes.
There was, they said, hey, well, let's try putting it on YouTube. They'll try putting it on WWE.com. I think they had extra time on one of the, I think it was originally, it was Sci-Fi, right?
ECW on Sci-Fi, yep.
And then that first episode, we get
the zombie.
Sandman versus a zombie.
Poor Tim Arson, God rest his soul.
And when you watch it and you see the Sandman's expression, literally, he's just saying, "What the fuck?" And folks, there are shoot videos out there of him talking about it.
Oh yeah, I mean when you have Tim Arson doing and then Kane right to the head. Oh, it was brutal. He kicked the
And
shit.
multiple.
And then the White Russian leg sweep, and that was the first match in ECW on Sci-Fi history.
And how did that not get a disqualification?
Because we're ECW.
But, you know, I give credit to Paul Heyman because he tried. He tried to make it work.
And I don't blame him for leaving. Like I really don't. Like that would make a man go insane because him and Vince were like this at this time because he wanted to do his vision, but Vince is like, no, this is my vision. I'm the one who brought it back. There was a lot of stuff like this that really went down.
And Paul, I think, knew ECW as he knew it. His baby was dead. He knew that. I think he was trying to give the fans as close to ECW as he could.
And it was okay for like the start. Like it was all right, but you knew it was just the third brand as it got along and to its closing in 2010. Yeah.
You know what? Let's be real here. If it wasn't for Paul Heyman and ECW, would we have NXT as it is?
No. And I've always said this, and what I love about you bringing this up is like when they started doing the Superstar Initiative and everything that went on in ECW in like 08, 09, it was treated as developmental. Like guys like Zack Ryder and everyone went over there. You know what I'm saying? And Christian was the top star in 09. Like it became sort of like a prelude to what we had.
And Matt Hardy.
And Matt Hardy as ECW champion and Jack Swagger. So it was like a prelude to what we got with FCW and NXT, sort of, with how they utilize the talent.
And it was different. Like, you know, we look at that. And I dare say if it wasn't for Paul Heyman, we wouldn't have NXT. At least in the sense of what it is.
Right. And that's what I'm saying. A lot of people forget like ECW towards the end was more of like the developmental brand. Like we had Kofi come from there. We had Sheamus. We had all these people that came from there. And look where they are now.
Yeah. Zack Ryder, who honestly is one of the absolute greatest on the indies, Matt Cardona.
He's been killing it, man. One of the best on the indies. He's really rejuvenated and revitalized himself.
And I think what he has shown is that you can survive with and not be part of an AEW or a WWE.
Like the indies, you can make a lot of money and you can still do your thing.
And you know what? You had a guy who, and let's look at Cardona for a moment, Mike. Cardona, he worked a death match with Nick freaking Gage. And I don't know. I know our viewers are familiar with Gage. Nick Gage is essentially the king of the death match.
Mm-hmm.
You know, he has done things that even Mick Foley has said he wouldn't do. And, you know, a guy it's his specialty. And, you know, Cardona being, you know, and Cardona, to his credit, he played that role.
Mm-hmm.
And I must have watched that match like 4 or 5 times.
I mean, Matt Cardona's even said, like, after that, when he had to wash all the blood off of him, like, in the shower. He was
picking glass out of his body for a week.
Right.
And that shirt, his T-shirt, was white.
And it became all red.
All red everything.
All red. Oh, God, don't get me started on Eva Marie. My goodness. But
you know, it goes to show that the ECW, it morphed. You know, and you think NXT, as you know, folks, as we're recording the show, we just finished NXT Deadline.
You almost said ECW Deadline. Oh my goodness!
You know, NXT and ECW, their legacies are merged
very much. And I mean, for those who've not checked out NXT Deadline, go back and watch Ilya and Baron Corbin. I think we even said this before we come on.
Even Dragon Lee and Dominic Mysterio, which, you know, Dominic was one of those guys who I remember, like. And you and I talked about it when he first said, you know, it's like this guy, you know, there's potential there. And he's finally becoming who we all knew he could be.
His heel run, like, rejuvenated and revitalized his career.
And I think being around Priest and Balor has helped exponentially.
And the same with being around Rhea, which how quick, like, she got to the business. Like, it's a beautiful thing to see. And I think I mentioned to you, like, Baron Corbin had a great match. Like, him and Ilya Dragunov. Like,
and Corbin's even said in interviews, he said if he finishes his career in NXT, he's cool with it.
I think you have a place, and what I liked about the fact that they're interchanging and intertwining everyone from different brands now,
Yeah.
instead of it just being like a one-off, like it works perfectly.
And we have NXT switching to CW end of next year, right? Or is it mid next year?
I think it's mid to end of next year. Yeah, they're going to the CW network.
And that's network television.
It's going to be big for them. That is a huge step.
And Billy Corgan, that could have been you.
If you would have not run there in the cocaine,
could have been you.
It could have been you. Instead of having the CW app, you had to run the cocaine.
To quote Nicholas Nemeth, it should have been me.
It should have been me.
But it's we talk about December to Dismember, and I remember rewatching it, and we did have a dark match, which looking at the results of it,
yeah,
we had Stevie Richards versus René Dupree.
I remember actually watching that. Here's a funny thing: when I went to the August whatever edition it was in 2006, the summer of 06, where they were at the Hammerstein, that was the dark match there. That was the same night that CM Punk debuted against Just Incredible. Like the fact that that was the dark
Aldo Montoya.
That was the fact that because nothing says ECW like Stevie Richards and René Dupree.
And you know what, Stevie Richards, I always thought he was underrated.
The whole thing with the barricade hitting his throat is what really took him over with the voice. You know what I'm saying? Really, yeah. But he was good.
Even beyond that, you had Stevie Richards. Who else could have made Right to Censor work?
Nobody. I mean, he made that work. He made the BWO work. He made a lot of the stuff that he did work as Raven's lackey, everything.
Again, I'll say I think he was underappreciated. I think he could have easily been Intercontinental Champion. Hell, if not even WWE Champion.
I think what's the only title he's ever held in WWE? Just the hardcore title, right?
I think tag titles.
Did he? No, I think with Right to Censor. No, that was Bull Buchanan and The Godfather. I think the only title
still counts.
Okay, Right to Censor, all right, but still,
Freebird Rule.
Freebird Rule. The hardcore title, I think, is the only thing.
I think so. I think in ECW he was a tag champion with Raven.
Yeah, they were the tag champs in ECW. You're right.
Good old Johnny Polo.
Johnny Polo. Well, that's the thing too. It's with this card, as we're about to get into it, it's originally one of the matches was supposed to be Al Snow and Kevin Thorne, and they were gonna have Al Snow wrestle on it, but you didn't get no Al Snow, and we'll get to the Kevin Thorne match. But you didn't have Al Snow, you didn't have a lot of the originals on it. You just had the FBI, you had whatever, and the FBI against Sylvester Terkay and Elijah Burke before he was the Pope. Just all these matches were very random. You know what I'm saying? It was just and I'll explain during the show. There's a lot of feuds that didn't make sense, where they came out in the placing of the show. Because if you watched ECW on Sci-Fi, you knew. But it's just and CM Punk getting buried in the Elimination Chamber match and everything that went into it, man. Are you ready to just hop into this?
Well, let's do it. So let's kick it off with the opening match, a random ass tag team match. The Hardys against Eminem. My first thought. Two absolutely great teams, and there were so many missed spots. And it's Jeff at the time was the Intercontinental Champion, and he seemed off.
I think I felt with this one they were trying to do the underneath of the Rock and Roll Express, them coming from behind, Matt and Jeff, they were working over Jeff's leg. They were doing these spots that you would see in an 80s tag team match. And for me, it was just meh. I mean, they had a rematch at the Royal Rumble 07, but out of everything
was that the one where Mercury got messed up?
No, that was at Armageddon 06. That was after this match in the tag title ladder match. Yep. Yeah. Go back and watch that. Friggin' his face blew up. The blood.
It is still gnarly to watch.
He didn't get his hands up on the seesaw. Brother, get your hands up.
Well, I think it happened so quick he couldn't.
Yeah, but that's my thing here. And here's why I like the tie-in. If you remember, Joey Mercury was an Omega talent, Hardy's promotion Omega. So that was cool. He was actually in ECW. Him and Christian York were a tag team in ECW. which was cool. Remember Christian York?
Oh yeah.
And he would go on to be in TNA, and right after not too long after this, I think he only had one match, Christian York in WWE. Remember who he wrestled?
No.
The Miz, and he
course.
lost. Of course.
Now, fun fact: my hometown boasts an ECW original.
From Buffalo?
No, from good old Elmira, New York.
Okay, which one?
HC Lock.
Who's he later on in the ECW, or who was he?
That was who he was.
Oh, you see, okay. I remember guys like Easy Money and fucking Chili Willy. Remember Chili Willy?
And Chris Chetty.
Yo, he's coming back on a wrestling show soon. I think he's going to be on Creative Pro on Long Island. Friggin' Chris Chetty, brother. Taz's cousin.
Yeah.
Ugh,
you know, Ben Chetty. Which, and I'll say this right now, as far as Send Hook, he's going to WWE, guaranteed.
You think so?
As soon as his contract is up, I think he's going.
I could see him in NXT. I think he would do well. And with the proper, training and everything that goes into it. I mean, look at Lexus King, what we saw tonight with him and Carmelo Hayes. I mean, how can you not? How can you not, man? But,
when I look at Lexus King, Brian Pillman, like, the dude has got it.
He does. And I mean, for me, as a lot of people had, and I mean, we'll go here with Joey Mercury, like before he got released. And I know it was because I think he had a substance abuse problem.
Yeah, and he wouldn't, and with the late, great Eki Fatu, a.k.a. Jamal, a.k.a. Yamanga.
Yes. That was the thing. He had substance abuse, and I think he was originally supposed to be in ECW, kind of like where John Morrison was. But I mean, it's a shame because I think he would have been a top player there because he was coming back after, violating the wellness policy. And like you talk about this being a random match, the Hardys just issued an open challenge for December to Dismember. Johnny Nitro comes out, and then Joey Mercury comes out, which also in a way doesn't make sense because if you remember, like when they lost the tag titles to London and Kendrick, like Nitro like turned on Mercury, and now all of a sudden all is forgiven and they're back together, and it's like, okay, and it's like, okay, sure. And this match was just them working over the leg, and then Matt Hardy hits the twist of fate on Mercury, and just the Swanton bomb onto Nitro for the 1, 2, 3. I thought this match was okay. Like you mentioned, the blown spots, but I understood the story they were trying to tell. And what we got with the rest of this card, this was probably the only thing decent on it. What were your thoughts?
It wasn't the best match, wasn't the worst. It was, however, the second longest match at 22 minutes and 33 seconds.
You started off hot with the tag match.
And it went downhill from there.
Oh, God. We'll do it. Ready? Matt Striker and God rest his soul, the late great Balls Mahoney, and
a.k.a. Santa Claus.
Santa Claus with the $1 Million Man. And a Strikers Rules match. Now, match is pretty much no gouging of the eyes, no pulling of the hair, no maneuvers off the top rope, and most importantly, no foul language. Matt Striker, your teacher. This match for me, a lot of rest holds, just boring, plotting, and then Balls Mahoney.
It was two styles that didn't work.
And again, came out of nowhere. This match literally came out of nowhere.
I mean, it was clear Paul was not booking this show.
No, he was not. And I mean, Matt Striker wasn't even feuding with Balls Mahoney. Remember he was feuding with on ECW on Sci-Fi? The Sandman.
And that would have made sense.
Yes, but they just put this out as random, and then Balls Mahoney all of a sudden.
What I'm wondering, Maggle, was Sandman...
Well, we'll see Sandman here and later on in the show, but who knows? Knowing Hardcore Hack, probably.
Hardcore Hack.
WCW. And as I mentioned, Balls Mahoney wins with the Spine Buster, 1, 2, 3. Now, did the right guy go over here, or what were your thoughts? Because they were building this Matt Striker as a heel, and he was doing the classroom stuff. But what were your thoughts on the match, and did the right guy go over?
Realistically, I'm going to say no. I would have had Striker cheat.
Mm-hmm.
You can't really pull tights because, well, he wore these cut-up jeans and a singlet under it.
Yes.
Which, okay.
Yeah. And it's funny to me because they brought in Balls around that ECW One Night Stand time period for 06. Like, he was one of the key people they brought back to be a part of that angle. And then he's here wrestling Striker. And then I think after this, he would go on to feud with The Miz because him and Kelly had a little thing.
And you know what I'll say? You know, Mahoney. It's sad. You know, he had some very serious substance issues.
The last time I remember seeing him was remember he lost his teeth and he was just down on his luck. It was bad.
I believe he had, I think it was methamphetamine.
Yes, it was the old meth mouth, if you will.
It was that, and if I remember right, I think it was due to injuries, or something. There was something. That,
well, I mean, the chair shots too didn't help his case either.
No, but he was somebody, he could wrestle. He could have a good match.
I mean, if he won.
I remember. Do you remember the Vince McMahon bastard son storyline?
And they thought, the balls Mahoney.
And he says, "You could have balls as your son." And Vince just shouting, "I have no balls." And then Mahoney just kind of does the whole. It is that corny, campy humor, and it's sad that I think he was another one that they tried to get him help.
Mm-hmm.
He wouldn't, and they released him because and there was an interview recently. We talked about good old Humanga, big Samoan guy, funny hat.
You mean Umaga?
That's what he said.
Humanga.
There was an interview with Chris Jericho, and he was talking about it and how broken up Vince was over it, and then he basically said, I tried. I tried to, get him help, but he wouldn't do it. He wouldn't get help.
Yeah, that was Jericho being interviewed by Chris Van Vliet and everything on his show. He was talking about Umaga and how, because remember they released him earlier in that year.
Yeah, and he passed away a couple months later, and I forget the drugs that were in his system.
Me too. I mean,
at this point, it doesn't matter. But Mahoney, again, he could go. He
could. I mean, you look at the Axel Rotten matches, him and Axel against the Dudleys in ECW. He could do the damn thing.
It's guys like him, Mick Foley. Guys who don't look like traditional wrestlers. You think guys like Rock, Stone Cold, Triple H. I think part of what made Undertaker as successful is Undertaker didn't look like a stereotypical wrestler. He didn't look like a Warrior or Hogan. He was, he wasn't, jacked. He's covered in tattoos. Well, not initially, because I think initially he just had, the forearms.
It was just the forearm, and he didn't really blow it out like he has now.
No, he went buck wild.
He went buck wild. That's for sure.
And I mean, and the tattoo of the ex-wife's name across the throat, which, ow.
Yeah, it's got to also be painful now that he had to get that cover up, but you could still kind of see it.
Yeah.
Well, you can.
And they have surgery where it can basically get rid of that.
Yeah, but
hey, your money.
Never tattoo a name of your significant other or spouse on your body because you don't know how long you're going to be with that person.
Exactly.
Now, who we're not going to be without is Sabu, because backstage, Sabu gets attacked. He gets laid out. They put him in the ambulance, and Paul Heyman goes, "I know. Hardcore Holly here in the match. Hardcore Holly, come on down." And you could hear the fans loudly chanting, "Bullshit. Bullshit." What were your thoughts of them taking out Sabu? And here comes Hardcore.
I remember seeing that just seriously.
Well, Hardcore. He just went over to ECW, had that feud with RVD, that infamous tables match where Hardcore Holly's back got cut up. Oh my goodness!
I'm gonna say this. I'm a Hardcore Holly fan.
I know you're a big hardcore guy.
Not so much a Sparky Plug fan, but
Hardcore Holly, yes.
And Hardcore Holly was somebody that they could have built this brand around.
They could have. I mean, he came right in like a bat out of hell. He's beating CM Punk in a feud, and then he's in the ECW title picture. They got Hardcore Holly somewhat over, but yeah, he was around, man. He was all up in the mix.
He did a lot better than this, and he did, and he got the worst Royal Rumble main event of all time, which, if you want to learn more about that, please check out our previous episode.
Yep, season 1, Brock Lesnar, Hardcore Holly, Royal Rumble 04.
Nice cheap pop there.
Yes, yes, but so they put
you can check that out right here.
Right here on Uncaged. And then after this, another match, random. It's Elijah Burke and Sylvester Terkay against the FBI. And here's my thing that I loved about this. This was just Burke gets the win with he was calling at the time the Elijah Experience, and it's pretty much a stroke. It's Jeff Jarrett's stroke, and then they beat him up afterwards. Sylvester Terkay hits a muscle buster on Guido, and you can hear loudly in the front row they're chanting TNA, TNA, TNA because of Samoa Joe. And oh god, this was just another one. What were your thoughts on Elijah Burke and Sylvester Terkay against the FBI?
Elijah Burke is somebody who I had always had high hopes for.
Yes.
I'd heard, of course, we always hear about urban legends in WWE and pro wrestling in general.
Mm-hmm.
I'd heard a story that he and Cena had gotten into it, and that's why. Or then I'd heard it was him. It was him and Orton that got into it. Which, honestly, I believe both. Quite honestly, but I always thought he was somebody that, again, could have been a world champion.
He's one of the guys, like, with the fact of the matter is this, like, with him, like, he came in red hot, and I mean, him and, like, CM Punk had a great feud, even though CM Punk says he's one of the worst wrestlers that he's faced, and I'm like, y'all had some good matches. Like, what the hell are you talking about?
Now, is he being serious, or is he being CM Punk?
I think it was a little bit of both, to be completely honest with you. And I liked him. Like, and then what did you think of them bringing? I mean, Sylvester Terkay has a history with Kurt Angle with the amateur wrestling and the Olympic stuff. What were your thoughts on bringing in Terkay?
Again, he was somebody that they never really did much with him.
And he was big in Japan, man. In 0-1, he was like the Bruiser Brody over there in Japan.
Yeah, and again, like, he was somebody. He had a unique look.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I think he was in the wrong time. Like, he was in the WWE in the wrong. Like, I think some of these guys, were they there now, I think they'd be doing. I think he's somebody that would be doing a lot better. I think Matt Stryker is another one. If Matt Stryker were active now as opposed to when he was, I think it would have worked. I think it would have been very effective. I could see somebody like a Matt Stryker being insanely over in NXT.
Mm-hmm.
Terkay, absolutely. I think I would have changed his name a little bit.
Well, he was Predator in 0-1. He was the Predator.
But not Sylvester Turkey.
I know everybody used to call him Turkey instead of Terkay. And your thoughts on him doing the Muscle Buster and the TNA chant?
I love the Muscle Buster. It's one of my favorite moves.
Same.
But, just the same. No, I've seen other people try it. It's like when somebody else does the stunner or somebody else tries to do the RKO or the tombstone. It's like, I'm reminded of the scene in the movie Anchorman where Steve Carell's character looks at Christina Applegate's character and just says, "You're not Ron."
That's exactly what it reminds me.
It's like when you see a move that's associated with somebody else and you're just like, no, don't do that. Like, don't do that move. Like, seeing somebody else try and do the pedigree.
Yeah. I mean,
like, nobody will ever be able to do the pedigree like Triple H.
I mean, Seth Rollins' was not bad, but
He's close. But I mean, like, Triple H, man, when he snapped that pedigree, like, fully always took a good pedigree.
Yes. I mean, were you a fan of the Pepsi plunge? Because I know Punk's was a pedigree, top rope pedigree, but what were your thoughts on, like, the Pepsi?
I love the Pepsi plunge. And the fact that he kind of brought it back in AEW a couple times, I want to see him use it at least once or twice in WWE.
And I think nowadays Triple H would be okay with that.
Yeah. And I think in the time when he was in ECW, I think he very much said, hey, look, this Pepsi plunge thing, nah, that's my move. Yeah. I was there first, change it.
And then he started doing the Anaconda Vice. Which, do you like the Anaconda Vice?
I do. He did the I believe he did the Bulldog he transitioned into. Then he did
the Uranagi into the Anaconda Vice.
Yeah, that's what it was.
I think for me, when you look at what we had here, and I'm going to say this right now, like we were talking about how this is kind of going off the cliff. It's really going off the cliff. And then we get to the next match, which I don't even remember like why this happened, but Davari and Tommy Dreamer. And do you remember the Great Khali in ECW at all?
Very briefly. Like,
like,
I think with Khali, he was somebody that like he never quite lived up to what they wanted, and it's not his fault. He's a guy that gotta pull this up here. He is 7 feet tall. Like, not like some guys where they say he's 7 feet tall and they're really like maybe 6'9", 6'10". No, he is legit 7'1". Like, his real name Dalip Singh. He is a big guy, and like you see him now, he's got some mobility issues.
Yes,
and like you gotta think, being that big of a guy, like no, like
I mean, where we were around this time with him, like he did the feud with the Undertaker, that was done, and then they put thank God, then he put they put him on ECW as like Davari's like, you know what he was? He was like Davari's 911. They made him like 911. And he was in the feud with Tommy Dreamer, but they had him and Davari here. And the best way I can describe this match to you, Dan, you can tell me if I'm right. It was Tommy Dreamer's greatest hits. It was the DDT, the Death Valley Driver, the ECW, the Trio Woe into the drop kick, and then Davari just rolls him up with the tights 1, 2, 3. Like, did you like this match at all? I mean, Davari has always been a good wrestler, don't get me wrong, but
again, highly underrated.
Highly underrated. But yeah, what were your thoughts on how they did this? And then the aftermath of this was the Great Khali just beats the crap out of Tommy Dreamer, does the choke bomb on the stage, EMTs come out, and you can hear Tommy Dreamer yelling, "I can't feel my legs!" So what were your thoughts on the aftermath, the angle, but first the matchup itself? Fair enough.
Now, as far as, the aftermath, again, and, I am a Tommy Dreamer mark. Like, I am an absolute mark for Tommy Dreamer. I've met the guy, I know, like you, like, he's a fellow New Yorker.
Yonkers, baby.
I'm not sure whereabouts that is to where, you're originally from in New York.
It's about like an hour-ish away, like hour, maybe 2, because like Yonkers and Queens are almost like near each other. So it's Long Island sort of, because it's not the 5 boroughs. Like everybody always have this distinction, like Queens. No, we're New York City. I'm like, no, you're Long Island. Shut up.
You're not one of the boroughs. You're not one of the 5.
You're not. Shut up.
Like, you're from what? Islip, right?
So I'm originally, I've Islip Terrace, East Islip. So I've most of my life I grew up in Islip Terrace, but then like towards like my teenage years, I moved one town over. So Islip Terrace and East Islip is pretty much like the same thing.
But that's not technically in New York City, right?
No, it's Long Island.
Okay, so
I'm suburbs. I'm the suburbs.
You're diet New York City.
Yes, I'm diet New York City. I'm the suburbs. Yes.
Just 1 calorie, not evil enough.
Yes, that's a great way. That's a great analogy. I like that you put that.
Yes. But and again, I'm like I said, you and I have talked. I'm a big Tommy Dreamer fan. I think he is somebody that is highly undervalued as for his wrestling mind and the ability to work with anybody. Like he could really, he could work with anybody. He could work with, the big guys, the little guys, he could get beaten up and obliterated.
He was also very giving. Like, if you remember, like we mentioned Cardona in the beginning of today's show, like Zack Ryder was Tommy Dreamer's last opponent, and when he was on ECW, and he beat Tommy Dreamer on the way out. Like, clean. And Tommy Dreamer did that for Zack Ryder.
Because he saw something in him.
Yeah. That's the thing.
And Tommy is one of those guys, he's not selfless. Like, he's not selfish. He's a selfless guy. And what I really enjoyed is if In the original ECW, the one reign he had, it was very quick. He beat Taz,
Mhm.
who again, when you had a WWE contracted superstar beating a WCW contracted superstar for a ECW
ECW
championship,
championship.
like y'all, wrestling is wild
Yep. Goddamn Mike Awesome.
because Eric Bischoff didn't do his due diligence on Mike Awesome.
No, that 70s guy.
Well, no, he didn't stop and think that, hey, he's
He's under-
still under contract to Paul Heyman.
And then remember,
And
they put him on TV, right? With him and Kevin Nash.
exactly. And Heyman didn't know that was happening until he looks on TV and sees, why is my world champion on your network? And I think he kind of got his lawyers. And did he get his lawyers, or did Vince McMahon say, hey, Paul, why is your boy on the competition? And because I mean, this was at a time where ECW was not doing well.
No, and I mean, it led us to Triple H, the WWF champion, versus Taz, the ECW champion, on an episode of SmackDown.
Both WWE superstars, mind you.
Right, and Tommy Dreamer getting involved.
And then we had Dreamer winning the ECW championship from Taz, immediately dropping it to Rhino.
Right.
Which, in that instance, why wouldn't you just have Rhino beat Taz?
You know what it was for me? And I think because they wanted to give Tommy the title, but Tommy didn't want it. Like, if you remember, like when he won it in 09 in that match with Christian Jack Swagger, I mean, they gave it to him, but I think both times Tommy didn't want the title. He didn't need the title.
He never did. But to me, Tommy's one of those guys, he wears his heart on his sleeve. Like, you talk about people that are the heart of their respective promotions. Like the Briscoes were the heart and soul of Ring of Honor. God rest his soul, Jay Briscoe. You talk WWE, Undertaker. Mark Calloway is the heart and soul of the WWE. Will be until the day he dies.
Mm-hmm.
Tommy Dreamer was to ECW what Undertaker was to the WWE.
I agreed. I mean, like you mentioned, both guys wearing their heart on their sleeves, but they believed solely in their brand and their passion for their brand and their work.
And when Dreamer won the ECW title, and he got made fun of this because he started crying.
Yeah.
It was the acceptance, and somebody who can understand that, and like when a company trusts you enough to put a championship on you, like Mike, you know a little bit about the business.
I do.
To quote Dudley Rhodes,
I know a little bit about the business.
They don't just put championships on anybody.
No, I mean,
Like, they've got to be able to trust you, and
right. It's like if you're the local indie, or you've been with that indie promotion for a while and you want them to be the face of the indie. I equate the New York Wrestling Connection right now. Like Joey Conway is a star on the rise, and they see something in him and they want to make him world champion after been doing this for doggone a few years now in NYWC, and they want to use that as their developmental, like their high standard. That's what you do. I mean, you've had Spike Dudley as a former NYWC champion, Matt Heisen. You had Jerry Lynn over there. You have the veterans working with the younger guys. There's a mix of how you do it. There's trust. There's overall, okay, who's going to talk these people into the building to come to our next shows? There's a lot of work that goes into it.
You need somebody that, to quote JR, is going to put butts in the seats. Like, we'll look at modern times. Let's look at Roman Reigns.
Yep.
Is he on every show? No. Does he need to be? No. But that when Roman how the title matches are going to end. But when Roman shows up,
it's special.
It's special. When Hogan showed up, or Flair, or any of those guys. Let's look at it. Let's use AEW. A fellow New Yorker, Maxwell Jacob Friedman, who, I will say this, I think he is the greatest champion around right now.
Besides Roman Reigns, yes.
And, Tony Khan looks at somebody like MJ, at an MJF, and as somebody like, if I'm Tony Khan, I'm thinking, yeah, I can build my company around this guy. And if I'm, other promoters like, like Triple H and Nick Khan, or Gato in Japan, I'm thinking like, I would want this guy because he's somebody that, you want somebody, and this is true and indicative of all wrestling companies. You want somebody that can connect with the crowd, can make them feel.
Evoke emotions, elicit reactions.
And, we look at, Kali, and I'm sorry, he never did that.
No, that was my thing with him. Like he was when he first came in, and we talked about the Undertaker and where he was at this time period, and then a year later he's wrestling John Cena for the WWE title. He was one of those guys. It was just like we talk about the mobility issues. We talk about just he was Giant Gonzalez, but a little bit more athletic than Giant Gonzalez.
Yeah, and he had that weird storyline with Natty,
where they were like a thing in the Punjabi Playboy, baby. What were the oddities? Him and Hornswoggle and Natty, they were the new oddities.
I'm a huge Natty fan, and I will say this until the day I die. Natty is probably the most underappreciated woman in the WWE.
They gave her a farting gimmick.
Yeah. And a custom SmackDown Women's Championship that was made to look like a fucking cat. You remember that thing?
I do.
I mean, Naomi had one that glowed. But it worked for her.
Yes.
And then there have been some. Mike, I think we're going to have to do this season. The wildest custom championship designs.
That'll be one of the episodes, absolutely.
Because Daniel, there's just so many.
Well, Daniel is not a fan of Jeff Hardy's enigmatic title from TNA. He's not a fan of the new IWGP championship that we had with. Yeah.
not the this big silver, the ECW championship, which is known among collectors as the Big Silver.
The Big Silver.
Like, what the fuck is that?
I cannot wait till we get that episode.
We're going to mention that. I'm going to have some, to quote Pepsi Phil, I have some things to say.
Oh, I cannot wait. Well, and I also can't wait for the crowd here in Augusta, Georgia. You could tell all life has been sucked out of this building, but it gets better because then we have a random ass intergender tag team match. It's Kevin Thorne and Ariel, aka Shelly Martinez, against Mike Knox and Kelly Kelly, who Mike Knox is a heel, Kevin Thorne is a heel, Ariel is a heel, and Kelly Kelly is the only babyface in this match. And they have a god-awful intergender tag match when Ariel and Kelly Kelly was in there, because Kelly Kelly, they rushed her right to TV with the exhibition shit. She was not a good wrestler. No. Ariel, a.k.a.
Never was.
Ariel was never a good wrestler. Man, I mentioned her match with Rebel and, TNA. My vag, before my hole, we had my vag. That match.
And don't forget Bully Racing. Taz, my balls.
I know, I saw.
So again, my hole,
my vag, and my balls. So
what's next?
I don't know.
But I think we've even gotten my ass once before.
Yes, I'm sure we did, but
I don't remember who it was. But why do I feel like it was probably Bully Ray too? Because why not? Again,
why not?
Folks, wrestling is wild.
It's so the finish comes with Ariel pinning Kelly Kelly with some sort of like STO that I don't even know what the fuck that was supposed to be. And then the Sandman comes out and beats the crap out of Kevin Thorne with the kendo stick. Here's my thing. At this time, folks, CM Punk was feuding with Mike Knox because CM Punk was talking to Kelly Kelly, and CM Punk told Mike Knox, it's not me staying away from your girl. It's tell your girl to stay away from me. Matt Striker was feuding with the Sandman. None of this made sense, but we got a Sandman appearance beating up Kevin Thorne. Go ahead, Daniel.
So I think with this one, the overall vibe I get is it seems like two people were booking the show. Like it was Vince and Paul Heyman were arguing back and forth saying, no, we're doing this. No, we're doing this. No, we're doing this. And the talent's back there is probably just thinking, oh.
What the fuck? All right, I'll put my hands up. What the fuck are we doing? Send me out there.
Like, am I doing this? Am I not doing this? What are we doing here? And I think and Paul Heyman has even not acknowledged that at this point, the wheels were off.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just the whole thing was just bad.
It was. And I mean, before we get to the Elimination Chamber match, I mean, Paul's out there with remember his security?
I think at that point, Heyman knew. He's like, yeah.
Do you remember the security, though? Remember who they were?
I don't.
Okay. They were the Basham brothers.
Oh, that's right.
But Danny got hurt, and they replaced him with, for those that remember OVW and Deep South Wrestling, developmental talent Derek Nykirk was the guy that they replaced to be with him, and he took a lot of the moves. Do you remember Derek Nykirk were you following the OVW Deep South developmental talent at the time?
No.
Yeah, I mean, he was okay. I've seen some of his work. I think he was in there with guys like Punk and Seth Skyfire, and here's some names for people to go look up, like Dean Visk was another one. Like, they had a pool in OVW. They had Bobby Lashley was there in OVW before coming to the main roster, which we'll get to.
Leviathan. Wonder whatever happened to that guy.
Oh,
I can't see him.
That was the prototype John Cena, yes.
Shelton Benjamin, like some of the absolute best of WWE of the past 20 years came through OVW.
Agreed.
And people are just OVW still killing it.
Oh, they still are on the indies.
If you want proof, check out Wrestlers on Netflix.
First of all, the fact that they highlighted Hollywood Haley J and her weed smoking ass, which just, I'm going to say right now, what a tough young lady.
Can we talk about Al Snow?
The man doesn't age.
He gets better.
He gets better. I mean, his voice is not what it used to be. It's more raspy, but he's still good.
Good old Leaf Cassidy.
Him and friggin' Marty Jannetty, the new Rockers.
If you had told me,
yes,
and again, folks, only in pro wrestling,
yes,
a guy would get over with a mannequin head,
I would have told you were nuts.
But then with that pro wrestling, yeah.
And he's so good. Like, another one when we talk about underrated, like what he did with the Tough Enough kids from Tough Enough 1 through 3 and the $1 Million Tough Enough, like, come on now.
And then Ryan Reeves won't stop eating.
He breaks a sweat eating.
And I don't think Al is a good old fan of Ryback.
No. Then again, who is?
Well, we know Pepsi Phil sure isn't.
God, he's got to stop. Like, Ryback, Ryan, like, can you get over it now, please, bro? Like, you haven't been relevant since 2000.
It's been 11 years.
Like, can we stop it, Ryan? Like, stop it.
You did it to yourself.
Because you're an a-hole.
Like, nobody wants you.
Like, do your feed me more nutrition, because I know he's doing his thing with that, and just
do your TikTok lives where you're talking your autograph.
just be done with it, Ryan. Just be done. And again, it's no hate towards Ryan Reeves. I don't hate Ryback. I just hate the fact that he thinks he's still relevant and nobody cares if he comes back. This is the same guy that said, if I come back, I'll get a bigger pop than CM Punk. No, the fuck you won't.
You won't.
You won't. But what we will do is finish off ECW December to Dismember, because we are at the main event, folks, the Extreme Elimination Chamber match. We start off with Rob Van Dam and CM Punk, and they eliminate Punk right away with the 5-star frog splash by RVD 1, 2, 3. He was the big thing on that brand. It was really showcasing CM Punk a lot since he debuted in the summer of that year. What were your thoughts on CM Punk getting out early and like the immediate burial of CM Punk?
To quote Randall Keith Orton, stupid.
And I mean, yeah,
Punk should have been the focus of that brand. And I think what it was, I don't think it was Punk. I think it was the fact that Vince didn't understand somebody like a CM Punk. The straight edge didn't understand it. Then I think at that point he was punishing Paul Heyman. And I think whoever, had been a Paul Heyman guy would have gotten the same treatment.
Agreed. And I think also around this time, like, Punk has mentioned it and Paul Heyman has mentioned in his documentary, like, every week they would say, all right, fire CM Punk, fire CM Punk. And Paul Heyman's like, no, I'm not going to do it. I'm not going to do it. He taught him production and stuff. Like, they wanted him gone. But Paul Heyman's like, no, I see something in him.
They wanted him gone in OVW.
I don't know.
Dusty Rhodes even pushed back against, getting rid of Punk.
Yeah, but because Vince didn't get the straight edge like the whole
He
time.
didn't get the tattoos.
Yes. He didn't get the Pepsi tattoo logo. He didn't get anything. He doesn't understand like that type of thing. And if you're not a muscle guy, Vince doesn't get you.
You know, and who knows what ECW that brand would have been if Vince had just said, Paul, it's yours. Do with it what you will.
Right. And I mean, for me, like we mentioned, RVD getting rid of Punk cleanly here. They had weapons in here. Like there was a crowbar, there was chairs and everything, but not a lot of it got used. And my thing was not even Test eliminating RVD and jumping off the pod with the elbow drop. Like Test's big elbow drop that he hasn't done since like 1999. And he pins him there. Like still couldn't even save this match. Test still eliminates Hardcore Holly with the big boot. You see a lot of people just going out of their seat of their pants. When Bobby Lashley comes in, it's all hell breaks loose. Like he eliminates Rob Van Dam. He eliminates everything. Like we see the running power slams. We see him eliminating Test. And you remember why RVD also kind of got eliminated too around this time too, right?
Yeah. The match was a blur. I watched it, and at this point, I'm like, I'm reminded of the match, like because I remember watching this back. My brother and I watched this. Wait, no, I'd had some friends over, because I get years mixed up, and just remember I was thinking that back to this, like, okay, like I sounded like, okay, this is bad.
Well, I mean, the reason he got eliminated so quickly is because remember this was around the time where he refused to go for the tribute to the troops on the Iraq tour because he wanted to stay home. He was burnt out. So he's like, I'm not going. You could ask me how many times, and I'm like, but I'm not going. And he refused to go, and this was his punishment. He got eliminated very early in the match.
Yeah, I wonder if they had a Saudi deal back then, he probably would have refused that too. And Vince had ways of punishing people.
Oh yeah, the losing streak. Look at MVP and the losing streak from 08. They tested him to see how he would react. It's like, hey man, you've done all this stuff and you work with all these people, but now you're going to go on a losing streak. Let's see how you react to it.
And if I remember right, Test wasn't around all that much longer after this.
Test, no. He would go on to do TNA very briefly. He was the Punisher, Andrew Martin, under his real name, and then he would leave TNA, and then he would just do indie stuff, and then unfortunately
he tragically passed away from an overdose.
Then his neighbor found him in his house. Yep.
And it's sad because he was somebody that even before he got roided up, and I believe it was steroids.
Mm-hmm.
He was somebody that, like, I don't know if it was Triple H or if it was or if it was jealousy, but he is somebody that had the look.
He was good. Like he was a Motley Crue bodyguard, and then they bring him into the corporation, and then the Triple H angle with him and Stephanie from the marriage and whatnot. Like and then the TNA tag team, and then I Love My Testicles with Stacy Keibler. Like he was a guy, man. He was just a 282-pound brick shithouse that could beat the shit out.
He was somebody that he connected with the crowd in spite of Vince McMahon.
I think for me also around this time too, dude, like he was big in ECW, like a big ass dude. And then he would go on to feud with Bobby Lashley in 07, for the Royal Rumble, which that match was terrible. But then he was gone like right after that.
I know you could tell he was getting gassed easily.
I noticed that too. Like watching this, I'm just like, oh, he's not
good.
He's not good. Like he had regressed. And I mean, Bobby Lashley had taken everybody out. And here's the thing, towards the end of the match, folks, like the pod hasn't even opened. So Bobby Lashley's just sitting there till the time goes out for Big Show to come out the pod, just sitting there like this, like, okay, all right, I'm going to wait here. And I think what pissed people off, because this is what was the controversial part, when Big Show comes out of the pod, they have maybe 2 or 3 minutes, and then Lashley hits the spear, 1, 2, 3. Lashley wins the title. Lashley had just come over from SmackDown. So here's the thing. It ends at 10:18 because Bobby Lashley and Big Show's not going to go for 20 minutes. Ain't happening. And then right away after that, Lashley's the champ. See you next time. Bye. It ends at legit 10:18. One of the earliest times ever that a pay-per-view has ended for the WWE.
Well, I think at that point, the one thing, when I first watched the pay-per-view when it first aired years back,
Yeah.
And then when I watched it just recently the other day,
Mhm.
uh, and I had the same thoughts. Like, you could tell as the night progressed, like Vince probably just is like, I am done. Let's. And I think when the show aired, now to give you an idea, typically, because I have the times here,
Okay.
typically elimination chambers are longer matches.
Yeah, they're like 20, 30 minutes, sometimes maybe 40.
This match was 24 minutes and 42 seconds from start to like entrances to, ending, but less than 25 minutes.
Yep.
Now, to give you an idea time wise for the matches, and I'm going to run through from the Hardys match all the way up to this so you know what we have.
Okay, good.
Hardys versus Eminem clocked in at 22 minutes, 33 seconds.
Okay.
Basketballs Mahoney versus Matthew Stryker, 7 minutes, 12 seconds.
Okay.
Elijah Burke and Turkey versus the FBI, 6 minutes, 41 seconds. Davari versus Tommy Dreamer, 7 minutes, 22 seconds.
Mm-hmm.
Kevin Thorns, a.k.a. Mordecai, and Ariel versus Mike Knox and Kelly Kelly,
Mm-hmm.
7 minutes, 43 seconds. And lastly, the Extreme Elimination Chamber, 24 minutes and 42 seconds.
So they're just like top for the first match and the last match go long. Everything else in between, who cares?
Now, there was nothing extreme about this Elimination Chamber. Like,
Not at all.
you think, and I remember when they promoted, I thought, oh yeah, we're gonna get chairs and kendo sticks and it's gonna get used. To me, this would be on the level of the Kennel from Hell match.
Oh, Al Snow and Big Boss Man from Unforgiven. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, for me, dude, it was a thing for me. Like like I mentioned earlier, like a lot of the weapons weren't used. It was just like whatever. It wasn't like anything that felt special. Like around this time period, like you had like the Survivor Series 02, you had SummerSlam 03, you had New Year's Revolution, you had a lot of good Elimination Chamber matches, but this one is easily the most forgettable Elimination Chamber match in Elimination Chamber match history.
Yeah, I would say one of the worst, if not the worst.
And from the 10-18 and ending early, and Vince kind of like throwing his hands up, for me as a viewer, and a lot of people hated it. Like, remember at the time, folks, this is before the network. Like, pay-per-view was what, like $35, $40 at the time?
If not more.
If not more. And you're paying money for this, and you're like, okay, let's see this. And then this is what you're getting. And it's like, this fucking
I would equate this on a level of, I believe, what was it? Victory Road 2011?
Yep, Sting Jeff Hardy, 2 minutes in the main event.
And it ended super rushed. And I think, honestly, Vince was in a rush to get this pay-per-view off the air.
Yep.
Because I remember Lashley's music had just hit. I think he had just been handed the title.
Yeah, and he went up
to start to raise it, and you see the copyright graphic.
Yep. Lashley's a champ. See you next time. Bye. Fireworks.
They said Bobby Lashley's won. Thanks for joining us.
Good night. So what it was.
And that poor fucking crowd. Like, honestly, I remember paying, I think I paid like $45 for this.
Yeah.
And I was mad. But imagine being in the audience. Like, you're paying like $50 for a ticket. And like you've been on WWE shows.
Oh, yeah.
You can't just buy a ticket. You got to buy a t-shirt.
Yep.
You got to buy a shirt.
You got to buy concessions. You have to go to the concession
got to buy, like nachos or,
hot dogs, chips,
pretzel or something.
Popcorn.
You could easily spend about $100 a person. Easily.
Yeah.
Once you figure in ticket, merch, and all that.
Yep.
I would be furious.
I'm sure they were. Like, again, have this hype of, okay, this is different. It's an ECW pay-per-view. And then you're like, okay, Hardy's Eminem, cool, the good pop for the Hardys. But then afterwards, it's like, they really are, they're giving us this. And this, like, sucks. Like, I mean, they tried to make the best of their own time. I mean, they were lively, but it's like, holy shit, this sucks. And they're going to go off the air at 10:18. And they're going to end it early. And they did.
And I think, and this goes along with what I've said, brand specific pay-per-views do not work.
Nah.
It's you can have Raw, you can have SmackDown, you can have NXT, whatever. But brand specific shows do not work.
Nah.
I will say the reason NXT is different because you don't want NXT talent to be on with WWE talent, because they're not going to be of the quality of, say, like a Seth Rollins versus Shinsuke Nakamura.
Not at all.
But we look at now, and as I previously mentioned earlier in the episode, would we have NXT without ECW? No, I can honestly say we wouldn't.
No. And I think with Paul Heyman, how he was dedicated to the developmental brand was much like how Dusty Rhodes and Triple H were dedicated
to the road.
That's the Rhodes. And I think for me, like, I can understand why, like, right after this, Paul left, him and Vince had the falling out. And then Paul wouldn't be back on WWE until 2012, and then ECW wouldn't be around until 2010, and that was the end of ECW with Ezekiel Jackson as the last ever ECW champion. Big Z.
And it's. I think at that point, ECW was done. It should have never been brought back. It's like, I'm reminded of that song that we got played for the Ric Flair retirement, the "Leave the Memories Alone."
Oh, by Fuel, man.
Great song,
but
leave the memories alone. Like,
the memories.
You notice they never tried bringing back WCW.
Yeah, well, I mean, in WWE 12 they did, but that's a video game.
Like, dude, Eric Bischoff somewhere is salty over that.
Oh, he still has got a little bit of salt in the wounds, if you will.
Like, you never got WCW One Night Stand, because that would have been ass.
Yes, it would have. Oh my god.
Like, you couldn't even get, you couldn't even get Sting. Like,
no. Ugh. But we got ECW December to Dismember, and I will say this: how we talk about wrestling, we love professional wrestling.
Yeah, we do.
And if you watch this show, and I have the DVD from years ago, and I love my mother to death. But the fact that she got me this for my birthday or whatever it was, she's like, but you watched this. I'm like, yeah, and it wasn't good. And we were all angry because it ended so early and it was horrible. But I can say I have it on DVD, and I watched the DVD, and Daniel watched it. How did you watch ECW? Did you watch on Peacock?
I did.
Daniel had it on the Peacock, that is. And yeah. If you've ever heard of the urban legend of this, it's true, number one, but also number two, don't go out of your way to watch this show, because it's horrible.
Just watch this, which you should be watching it anyway.
You should be watching this anyway.
You should be subscribed. You should have the notifications turned on.
Yep.
You should be watching every other episode, because we have had some really good episodes. We finished stories long before
Cody
long before Punk has, long before Cody ever will. Which is Punk ever going to finish? Is Cody ever going to get to finish this story?
We shall see. But what we shall see as well, what story is coming up on season 3, episode 2, we're going to have a superstar spotlight. We mentioned him a lot in this episode. We're going to be talking about Umaga. So we're going to talk
about smelling guy. Funny hat.
You mean Umaga? Yeah, that's what I said. So we're going to be talking about
not solo Umaga, Umaga.
But we're going to talk about the Rosie and Jamal 3-minute warning tenure from 02 to 03. We're going to talk about Umaga's 2006 to 2009 run, and we're going to talk about
the brief-faced run.
Brief-faced turn, which still is baffling. We'll get into that on the next episode. But Umaga, we love you. Rest in peace. Oh, what a career. What a career. And folks, before we close this out, Daniel, thank you as always. I know I put you through hell with this one, literally, but god dang it, we got through it, and I appreciate you, and we'll do some more fun ones. But yeah,
I'm gonna get you back. I'm gonna find a pay-per-view that you can't stand, and I'm gonna make you watch it.
Oh, hey. We'll do it in spirit. I appreciate it. This is why I love you. But yo, we got a lot of great episodes coming for season 3. Thank you for listening. And I mean, it is holiday time, folks. It's the season of giving. And hope everybody has a happy holidays and a Merry Christmas, because we got a lot of great stuff coming up.
Be safe. It's this day and age. There's a lot going on. It's so easy. I'm going to get out of my soapbox for a moment.
You're good.
If I could be serious for a moment.
Okay, Lance Storm, go ahead.
In life, it's so easy to lose sight of things. To be unappreciative and be ungrateful to be alive. It's what I would ask people to focus on is to find people that love you and support you. Find things that make you happy. Doing this show makes me happy. Professional wrestling makes me happy. Fans don't make me happy. And I'm talking AEW marks, WWE marks. They don't make me happy. They make me angry. They wouldn't like me when I'm angry.
Mini Hulk over here. But to follow up on what Dan's saying, yeah, just enjoy yourselves, enjoy your loved ones, because that's what it's
Be
about.
safe.
Be safe. It's about family, foundation. Just have a Merry Christmas, man. We're going towards the new year. We're going towards 2024. So,
And we are going to bring gifts to you with more episodes.
yeah. So stick around.
We're giving. We are the Santa Claus here.
Take
now,
it.
If you don't subscribe and you don't click the bell, then maybe Krampus is going to have to come pay you a visit.
You're going to get a lump of coal like with friggin' Angelica and the Santa Experience on the Rugrats. That's what you're going to get.
I would go with Krampus, but it's...
Hey, I'm a 90s kid. It is what it is. But yes, Krampus, Rugrats, that's how we roll. But Christmas, well, actually, Daniel and I are going to be doing a pop culture show. We're going to be talking about some Christmas movies and some Christmas.
Some of our favorites, it's... You can... And even, there is one that is wrestling related.
Oh, yeah.
Where Bill Goldberg played an evil Santa Claus. Like
Santa Slay. S-L-A-Y.
I wish I was making this up. I actually saw it.
No. Oh, God. Let's save it for the pop culture show. Okay.
So all I'm going to say is, wow. All I'm going to say, wow.
Yeah, wow, indeed. Before we close this out, Daniel, Christmas Clash is coming. You and Dazzy, knowledge title. You're looking to get it back. You're looking to get your baby back.
There was a time where I would have said no, but you know what? At this point, it's out of spite.
Yeah.
You know me well enough now, Mike. I am a very spiteful person.
He is, very much so.
Like, to the point where you done piss me off.
And he wants his title back, goddammit.
It's not that I want it back. It's just I don't want you to have it.
I like your style.
I'm like a dog who, they have the toy and they're just like, and I know, Mike, you have felines and it's like they have a toy and then there's like another one tries to take it and it's just like, no, I wasn't playing with it, but I don't want you having it.
Yep, I have 2 cats. I get that. I understand that completely.
So it's like, no, I don't want him playing. I'll put it on my shelf somewhere.
Dazzy, he wants his title back and he's just going to take it anyway out of spite.
I want Goldie back.
Love it. Love it. So stay tuned for that and stay tuned for more Uncaged. For Daniel Kermans, my name is Mike Larkin. All I have to say is Hardcore Holly, Elimination Chamber. What the fuck, Ariel? What the fuck, everything? Like this whole pay-per-view was what the fuck? 2 hours and 18 minutes. Delete this. Delete it.
To quote Ron Simmons, and this is my final word. Damn.
That's what we can say about ECW Dismember. Damn. And we're out. We'll see you in the next episode. Thank you for listening, everybody.